Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We are on episode 103, and we're coming at you on a beautiful, can't really say warm, but it looks warm, of a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I mean, the
26
sun's out.
degrees.
Yeah, and I hate when it's in the 20s and it's super sunny. It's deceptive. Like, it looks like it's really warm because the sun's out. There's no clouds in the sky. It's beautiful, but unfortunately, the reality is that it's also 20 some degrees out. So I'm not looking forward to that's. Like, everybody talks about how much they love like autumn and like the fall season. And for me, it's not that I don't like fall weather. The reason I don't like fall weather is because I know that it's foreshadowing. Like, it's just going to
winter is coming.
Absolutely. And I hate, everybody knows that I harp on that all the time, how much I hate winter. So like, the fall is just kind of like the precursor to that. So anytime it starts to get cold out, I'm not really a big fan.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Still got to do the same things that I need to do. Still got to go for walks, be outside, try to get sun exposure when able, try to get some grounding when I'm able to, get my bare feet on the earth and go for my long nature walks and stuff. Now, again, I don't do those with as much regularity when it's cold out, but that's just because I hate the cold. I should not make excuses, and I should actually do it more at that point.
Well, yeah, I was getting ready to, I was thinking that anyways, is, we both talk about doing things we hate doing more to get used to them. So,
well, then not only the mental fortitude, but think about the physical benefits of sun exposure, which there are numerous. And we could do an entire podcast just on the benefits of getting well-regulated and consistent sun exposure. That's going to start to slowly taper down as weather gets colder, because you're going to be outside less and have less skin exposed. So when you talk about sun exposure, a lot of it is ocular, like you want it to be in your eyes. You want to see the sunlight, but then also the photoreceptors on your skin. You want to expose as much of your skin as possible to the sun to get some of the benefits like vitamin D production from the UVB rays and stuff like that. But one of the things that you have to consider is in the winter, fall and then transitioning into winter, you have a lot less skin exposed, right? You're not in a bathing suit anymore. You don't have a cutoff on anymore. So realistically, since more of your skin's covered, you need to be out there a lot longer because you can at least get your face and your hands to get some sun, some fresh air. So I feel like, if even mentality aside, just from the physical properties, you should spend more time outside during the winter. It'd be largely beneficial for you.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, kind of a spin to a different season, but in the summer, as you know, as everybody knows, we both like to train in sweatpants and hoodies. But when we're outside, should we strip down to a more minimal amount of clothes to absorb some more of that sunlight?
Yeah, that's usually what I do. Yes. Like I do a lot of, like spending time in as minimal clothes as possible. So like, I'll wear like boxer briefs or, like I have, I forget the name for them, like European briefs. They're like swim trunks, but they're basically like underwear swim trunks. And I'll wear those outside when I mow the lawn. I'll wear those outside just to like lay out in the sun and be in the grounds or on the grounds. I also do like for example, because I don't shave my body like most bodybuilders with a razor. What I do is I trim my body hair with like a little like handheld clipper thing, so it's down to like basically a stubble. Well, when I do my legs and like my chest and stuff, I do it outside. So I make sure that I'm getting as much sun exposure as I can. So things that I would normally do in the tub or whatever. So I definitely, when I'm home, because you're right, I do like training in a hoodie and sweatpants, and I like wearing those even when I train outside. So when I'm home and I'm alone, I like to do activities outside with as minimal clothing as possible, specifically for that sun exposure. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. Well, makes sense.
You're just getting more benefit from the sun, the more of your skin that's exposed.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I'm over here trying to learn more and more as this like new cycle of my life goes on, and I want to learn as much as I can. So I hear you talk about more and more like sun exposure, and I'm like, there has to be something to it.
Well, and you have a lot of different camps on that too, because like you have a lot of people that are I don't want to say anti-sun exposure, but like a lot of dermatologists who are experts in their field talk about the importance of constantly wearing sunscreen. But then I've also talked to some dermatologists and people who I consider experts in their fields talking about that sunscreen can actually make problems worse in some instances, and that it's better to, for me, and we may have some dermatologists listening who disagree, and that's fine. For me, I can just say anecdotally, I don't have studies and data to back this up, but I always do best whenever I am as biologically simple and ancestral as possible. So when I can do things like I've talked about it before, from an evolutionary perspective, what our bodies were designed to do, like lifting wise, our bodies were designed to go into deep squats, positions of extreme knee flexion and ankle flexion, like dorsiflexion. So like the one guy that's all over social media now is knees over toes guy. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. We may have talked about him on the podcast before, but he does like these extreme range of motion lunges. And people always, like, one of the things you're always told is knees going over your toes is bad for your knees, in which the data actually supports that it's the exact opposite. And the reason I bring that up is because our bodies were designed to move a certain way, but we don't use them and we don't move them in a certain way. So everything that I do, from the training to the nutrition, lifestyle, I try to go back to how we are, quote, supposed to be designed as organisms. And every time I do that, I end up looking better and feeling better. So I'm not necessarily like saying that you shouldn't wear sunscreen and stuff like that. And, heck, I've actually had a couple like moles removed that were precancerous. So maybe I shouldn't be spending excessive time in the sun, because maybe I have some type of genetic predisposition to these like moles and these mutated cells. But regardless, when I do things the most simple way possible from an evolutionary perspective, I seem to get the most benefit, and that's just how I feel. So again, not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just kind of my take on it. So no sunscreen.
Right. And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't use sunscreen when I'm at the beach and going to be down there for 10 hours. But I have always thought about sunscreen and was always confused by it. And I didn't understand. I like, from an early age, I thought about sunburn, right?
Yeah.
And I always compared that to when you're a child and you touch the stove and it's hot and your parents say, "Ow, that's hot. Don't touch the hot surface." It's the same concept to me in my head. The sun is burning your skin. You get a sunburn, it starts to hurt. That's your body telling you, "Hey, man, you've had enough."
Yeah.
If you put sunscreen on, you don't get that, "Ow, it hurts." So your body doesn't tell you, "Hey, man, that's enough." So then you sit in the sun longer and longer and longer. In my head, I feel like you're getting past the point where your body wants you to be in the sun.
Well, we can talk too about that. Like, when you say evolutionarily speaking, we need to go back to being as basic and simple as possible, right? With no sunscreen.
Yeah.
But the other thing to consider within that scope that's really important is our bodies over time have developed and evolved to not have a ton of sun exposure because we haven't done that. Like our ancestors, like our immediate ancestors, like the closer you get to you and I, so like our parents and then our grandparents, our great grandparents, the closer you are to you and I, the further away from the primitive selves we've become. So we've gotten less sun exposure. So our bodies over decades and decades and decades, or centuries and centuries and centuries, have developed to not get much sun exposure because we're wearing clothes now, like cavemen did not. And we're inside buildings like caveman weren't. So our bodies are actually, so you could actually make the counter argument where our bodies aren't to the point where we can handle these sorts of things. It's like eating raw foods. Like if you and I just started eating nothing but raw meat, we could get sick and our bodies would probably reject it. And it would be a very, very long and difficult process for you and I. Speaking of which, I don't know, again, I'm trying to recall if we've talked about it before. I feel like we have, but have you been paying any attention to this Liver King guy?
Yes, I
Now,
have.
have we talked about him before?
No, we have not, but I find him interesting.
Dude, he's a
Um,
maniac. He's so for anybody who doesn't know, let me preface this, Justin, real quick and give everybody the rundown.
yeah,
The Liver King is this guy who's kind of hit social media fame on Instagram is his primary outlet. I don't know if he's elsewhere. I know he's on Instagram. I saw that a couple days ago he had put out a short YouTube trailer, so I think he's going to start putting video content on YouTube, which would be awesome. And the guy is kind of like how Justin and I talk about living ancestrally and primitively, but he takes it to a whole new level. Like the
yes,
dude eats nothing but raw foods. He is, I'm assuming he's ketogenic based on his food choices, where he's nose to tail animal consumption. So what that means is when people talk about like a carnivore diet where you're just eating meat and animal products, those guys and girls, they don't just focus on stuff that you and I would consider animal products like turkey or ground beef or chicken breast. They eat the whole freaking thing. So like he'll eat livers and kidneys, and he even eats testicles of animals, and he'll get like pieces of bone, like raw pieces. He eats all this stuff raw. He'll get raw pieces of bone, and he'll get the bone marrow out of it and eat it. So it's very high fat, very high protein, but he eats basically like a hunter would, and his workouts like simulate hunts. He calls them simulated hunting. So like long periods of carrying and like walking, and he does strength train. The dude looks like a freaking animal. Like he's just shredded beyond belief, and he's huge. But a very, very, very unique way. Like I said, I don't think he cooks like anything. I think he may cook meat occasionally, like some of his ground beef. It looks like he's cooked his burgers and stuff. But all his organ meat, I believe, is raw. He eats raw eggs. Just a complete maniac when it comes to this stuff. And I mean that as nothing more than a compliment. Like
absolutely,
he's doing all the right things. Like he's real big on sun exposure. Like he trains outside with no shirt on. He's got a huge beard. Like the dude just looks like a warrior.
Yeah, and there's something to that mindset, and that's what I was talking about in months past when I said something about wanting to try the carnivore, quote unquote, if you could see, I have the air quotes, diet. Is I wanted to try it, but I just financially in this market, it's really tough.
Well, especially right now. That's a good point.
But it's that's why I've never really went full on tried carnivore, because to acquire that much nose to tail of an animal is tough. But yeah, he's awesome. Like, and he does push supplements too that are, I can't remember who makes them, but it's liver and like mainly just liver, like capsules.
That is oh goodness, I got to know this now. I think it's like ancestral nutrition or ancient nutrition. That is, I think it's company.
Ancestral nutrition.
That's his company. He's the CEO and he owns that.
Oh, okay.
So I don't. Obviously, I'm sure he has like a team of formulators. I don't know if he formulates all the products himself, but I do know that is his actual company. That's not a company that he's like recommending. Like he owns it and controls it. So.
That's awesome. But no, that dude he's insane. And in the most awesome way to say it, he's insane.
Yes. Yes. And he's getting a lot of controversy right now about, his lifestyle and some of the things that he does, but I think it's great. He actually made a really good post, maybe yesterday. Yesterday is where I saw it. He might have posted it yesterday or previously, but he was talking about cholesterol. Because when you're eating very, very high fat content, which he is, because it's all animal fats, like very high saturated and unsaturated, but a lot of high saturated fats, you automatically get lumped into that guy's going to have poor cholesterol, right?
Right.
Now, the other thing is he is natural by his claims, but I think that some people don't believe that, which you got to take the guy's word for it, because at the end of the day, that's all you can do. But a lot of people think that because of his size and how lean he is and his strength, that he's taking performance enhancing drugs also to supplement what he's doing. So within that, that would affect your lipid profile a lot. So your cholesterol would be even worse because of that. So he addressed it and said that the one question he gets all the time is, what's your cholesterol like? What's your cholesterol like? And you guys should go look it up on Instagram because it's a pretty cool response. And he said, number one, my ancestors didn't measure their cholesterol. Like they didn't have that as a marker. They didn't care what their cholesterol was because it was all about survival and thriving. Now, he also added some additional context there because you could make the argument that that's silly because our ancestors, you know,
didn't have the technology.
Yeah, they didn't have the technology to be able to do that. Like you drive a car, like, so should you say, oh, you should stop driving a car because my ancestors didn't, or say that you shouldn't have electricity in your house because your ancestors did it? So there would be a point where his argument would turn into a fallacy. But like what he did was he said, there are so many, if you're going to look at blood markers as indicators of heart health, he's like, there's a multitude of other things that are probably a little bit more advantageous as far as giving you quality information that you need. He was like, instead of looking at your cholesterol, look at your inflammatory markers, look at your insulin levels, your glucose levels. So he named a litany of things. It was just basically like, hey, check these markers first if you really want to understand what your quote heart health is. You know, in saying that the cholesterol alone isn't really indicative of true heart health. Like me, for example, now I'm not saying my heart is healthy and I'm not saying my heart isn't healthy, you know, but based on my understanding, my heart seems okay. But my cholesterol is always pretty, I don't want to say it's bad because it's not, but it's not perfect like I want it to be. Because obviously, like I strive for everything to be perfect and my cholesterol is not. My LDL, which is your bad cholesterol, runs a little high, and my HDL, which is my low cholesterol, runs a little low. And no matter what I do in terms of nutrition, like try to mitigate that through nutrition or through proper supplementation or through cardiovascular work or whatever, I've never been able to get it perfect. I've been able to improve it, but it's never been perfect. And then when you look at my dad's is the same way. My dad has perfect blood work aside from his cholesterol, which is a little bit high on the bad side and a little bit low on the good side. And that's even in the face of great nutrition and great training. So right. There's like some genetic variables there. But I just thought that the Liver King's post on cholesterol was pretty insightful and pretty good. You got to take it big picture because everybody knows like, oh, cholesterol. But most people don't understand that when you look at blood work, it's big picture. Like if one thing's off, why is that one thing off? Number one. And number two, if that's the only thing that's off, you're probably fine.
Right. And from my understanding, when you're looking at blood work and you're looking at the big picture, if your one thing is off, you can almost find a contributing factor somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
In another number. Another number will be low or another number will be high. And you may not have to target the cholesterol to fix the problem. If you fix the other issue, the deficiency will even out.
And dude, that actually leads me to a really good story that I want to tell you about how, like when you look at blood work and looking at things big picture, you got to consider context and everything. You know, so let's go to a commercial break. And when we come back, I'd like to share that story with you because it's really, really good. So we'll go to a quick commercial and we'll talk more about my story on adding context to blood work when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. Prior to the break, Justin, I said that we were talking about blood work, kind of had a convoluted conversation that kind of divulged in different areas and went back and forth. And then we wound our way talking about blood work. And I wanted to share a story with you. I think I've shared this on air before. Again, I'm not sure because I know that sometimes we repeat the same stories, but I think it's good because listeners don't listen. Some listeners don't listen to every episode, obviously. And,
And
when,
there's just some things that are need to be said more than once.
yes. Plus, when you do 103 episodes, you kind of lose track of what stories you've told over the past 2 years. So I had blood work one time that was was unplanned. It was just kind of like a spur of the moment type thing. So I went to an urgent care. I was getting a lot of vertigo one morning where I woke up and I had trouble standing up because I was so dizzy. It was like the craziest thing ever. Like I couldn't even walk into my kitchen from my bedroom because I was like falling against the wall. Like it was almost like I was intoxicated or something. I'd never been this dizzy in my life. Like I couldn't even stand up. So it got a little bit better to the point where it probably ill-advised, but I was able to drive to school because I was working that day. So I drove to school. Again, looking in hindsight, probably shouldn't have drove. And then at school, it started getting really bad again to the point where like I couldn't even focus on anything. So I told my principals, listen, like you guys got to get a sub for me. I got to go to the doctors, like, or go to urgent care right now and get this figured out because I can't even stand up. So anyway, long story short is you have these inner ear crystals and inner ear fluid that kind of regulates your equilibrium and your balance. And my understanding is what happens is sometimes when you sleep and you turn your head certain ways, the crystals can kind of get lodged in parts of the ear canal and they can't get out. So your body is completely disoriented. So they put you through, I think it's called the Epley maneuver, where they lie you down on a table and your head is like off the edge of the table, like lean back. And then they put you on the side and then they sit you up real quick and they put you in all these different positions. They hold the positions a certain amount of time and then you turn on the other side a certain amount of time. And they put you through these positions, and it's based on like trying to get like, it's like you have a maze with like a ball and a maze and you're trying to tilt the maze side to side to get the ball to go where you want it to go. They're trying to move the inner ear crystals based on the path of the ear canal. They try to get them to move back to where they should be. So anyway, it ended up working and I was fixed like almost instantaneously and I was back to normal once they got those ear crystals moved. So it was cool. But then they wanted to do some blood work just in case. So they're like, hey, you're here. Let's just do some blood work just to make sure, nothing serious is going on. And although we obviously seem to have fixed the issue, let's do that. So I get a call a couple days later when my results come in and the guy tells me that he's very concerned about my blood work. And I said, okay, well, what parameters are we looking at here? What specific, metrics? And he said it was my kidney failure or my kidneys and said that it looked like I was potentially going into kidney failure. And me, usually I'm like a hypochondriac about stuff and I worry about my health. So normally I would be concerned, but I actually kind of laughed at him and said, no, I said, that's just, we got to add some proper context here. Now the doctor was like genuinely concerned and was like, well, I don't think he said, this is very serious, blah, blah, blah. So to give everybody a little bit of context here, when they look at your kidney values, there's nothing hooked up to your kidneys to see how they're functioning, right? So what they do is they measure certain things in your blood, like your creatinine levels, your blood urea nitrogen. They measure these certain things in your blood and see how built up it is because your kidneys should be filtering it out pretty consistently. So basically, if you have a lot of these things built up in your blood and there's high levels of it, it's indicative of your kidneys not filtering them out like it should. Or if you have very low levels, that's good because it shows that your kidneys flushing this stuff out so you don't have a lot of it in your blood. And what they do is they measure this stuff, they put it into like an algorithm, and they calculate based on that what's called your eGFR, your estimated GFR, glomerular filtration rate, which basically just looks at how efficiently your kidneys are working. So the GFR, and you'll look at different ranges. Typically, anything below 60 is, quote, bad. So anything below 60, the higher the number, the better. So you want your GFR to be above 60. So like typical would be 80 to 120, like in the hundreds, in the triple digits would be really good. Like 80's fine. Anytime you get below 60, it's indicative of potentially going into mild kidney failure. So you don't want that below 60. Mine was like a 57, I think, 56. So technically by the value, it showed that I was in failure, right? Like my kidney, I was in renal failure. My kidneys were failing. And I told the guy, I said, listen, man, there are so many factors playing at this number. Like he wanted me to see a nephrologist, which is like a kidney specialist and all this stuff. And I was like very dismissive of it. And I told him, I said, all right, here's what we'll do. I said, give me 3 days and I'll come back and retest. And then if you're not satisfied with the results, then you can schedule me an appointment to see a kidney specialist. And he was like, okay, that's fine. So here is the reason why my number was so low. Number one is EGFR is not the greatest marker for people to measure their kidney function if they have a ton of muscle, because creatinine is constantly getting released because you have so much muscle mass. So if you have a ton of muscle mass, it's going to show that there's a lot of creatinine, more so than a normal person, that's circulating through the bloodstream. So that's going to be elevated. Okay, so just the fact that I have muscle, that's strike one. Strike two would be muscle protein breakdown. So when you're lifting, there's a ton of fatigue toxins and things like creatinine that are getting released into the bloodstream because of tissue breakdown and tissue damage. So the day before I went in for my blood draw, that because I went in the morning, I said I had to leave school really early. Yeah. The night before that, I had done like a 2-hour leg marathon. It was just like really bad timing where I did like this crazy workout where we did tons of squats and tons of leg presses, and a lot of hamstring curls. We just did like a 2-hour leg marathon where we absolutely annihilated our legs. So there's going to be a ton of creatinine released there, right?
Right.
Then on top of it, I was dehydrated. Because normally I go through this like hydration protocol in the morning where, I drink nothing but water for X amount of time because I like to do things fasted for a while in the morning. This is when I was training in the evening, but normally my morning is nothing but hydration. But I woke up and couldn't even stand up and walk to the kitchen. So I wasn't hydrated at all. So I was underhydrated, which is going to cause my kidney values and my blood markers to be way off. Fourthly, I wasn't fasted. Because when you go in for these, like just your basic metabolic panels, one of the things they recommend is like an 8 to 12 hour fast. So you shouldn't have any food because that's going to throw your glucose levels off, insulin levels off. Well, I had eaten breakfast because I didn't plan on getting blood work done. So I ate a bigger breakfast. So I had all these things, dehydration, big breakfast, just trained legs the day before. I have a lot of muscle mass. Obviously, I eat a high protein diet, which, is going to get broken down into a byproduct of creatinine. So there's plus I take creatine through different training cycles. So that gets broken down as well. So like there's so many factors at play here that would make my numbers look off. So for the next 3 days, I took a couple days off from the gym. I hydrated a little bit better. I lowered my protein a tad. I went back in and retested, and my EGFR was back in the 90s. It was like 98. Perfect. So I was like, perfect, like right where you need to be. And then I explained the context to him, and he got it. And I understand he was just doing his job, but the whole reason of me going on this tangent was just to show you that like it's all about context. Like if just my kidney values are off and nothing else is off, it probably shows that it's a poor read based on something. Right. But if my kidney values were off and my liver enzymes were elevated and my white blood cell count was through the roof, it's like, oh, okay, there's something that we need to check out here because all this stuff is whacked out,
Right. And I think that's the main reason. That's the main reason that I like homeopathic medicine more than conventional medicine. Not to say that I don't have a true respect for like modern Western medicine.
Yeah, because
absolutely. Like the intelligence level in some of these doctors is incredible. I just think that we go to the worst case scenario entirely too fast.
Well, I think that's it. I think what it is, in my opinion, is it's just a hierarchy of executions. So like you need to execute steps in a particular order. And I feel like we don't do that. So like when someone comes in and they feel like crap and they have all these issues, Like instead of prescriptions, I think the first step you take is let's assess what your nutrition is like. Let's assess what your sleep is like. Let's assess what your sleep management is like. Let's assess your emotional state and what your relationships are like. Let's get that in order and see how you feel. And then if we still have issues that we're running into, then we can intervene with traditional Western medicine afterwards.
Right.
I just feel like the first thing you need to do is address all those low hanging fruits because that's
all the natural things.
Yeah. Like, and then go that route because like I work with a homeopathic physician and like he will prescribe just normal medications that quote normal doctors do, but he tries to do everything through over the counter supplementation. He's big on a plant-based diet, very, very big on optimizing sleep and optimizing your nutrition, optimizing your relationships and your spiritual side first, and then going those routes once, everything is said and done. So
right.
I think that like, there's definitely a place for Western medicine. I just don't think that writing people prescriptions right from the get-go is always, and now sometimes they need that, but like the example I could use is like people that are pre-diabetic or on the fringe of diabetes and they give them like metformin or some type of like insulin mimetic, or they start them on like a low dose insulin. Well, why not fix their nutrition first? Like how many carbohydrates are they eating a day? If they're eating 500 grams of carbohydrates, well, there's your freaking problem. Why would you put a Band-Aid and not fix the root of the problem? Like what we do in Western medicine is we have a tendency to treat the cause and not we treat the symptom and not the cause. So the symptom this person's getting is low insulin production through the pancreas. So instead of we just treat the symptom by giving them something that mimics insulin so they can continue to stuff their face full of carbohydrates that are, unnecessarily too voluminous for what they need.
It's almost like Western medicine has got blinders on to the whole picture.
Yeah,
because all they want to see is the issue. I don't see the vessel. Vessel being the person. Like if 3 years ago, if I walked into a doctor's office and had any markers at all, they wanted to treat the symptom and not the fact that I was 500 pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, instead of having this discussion with you, like, dude, you need to get your weight under control or you're literally going to die. Your blood pressure's high, so let's give you this diuretic. And then your cholesterol's high, so let's give you this statin or, whatever.
Yeah. So, and I guess I should preface that with, they always end their conversation with that. But why not open your conversation with, let's get your body in good health, because that's what's going to fix the problem in the long term. Like I'm not against treating the symptom and the cause at the same time, but you should treat the cause first.
100%. And I just feel like that's like, I hope people understand too that you and I aren't being critical of how physicians run their practices, because like these doctors are a gazillion times smarter than I am. And I don't think that, I'm not saying they're doing things the wrong way or other people are doing it the right way. Like I'll just concede and say, guys, yeah, you guys are smarter than me for sure. But I'm just saying that I think that theoretically, me putting this out there, to me, at surface value, it seems to be the correct way to do things. But again, that's just on an uneducated opinion of mine that I'm throwing out there. So take it for what you will. I don't want people to, again, it's all about context, right? I don't want people to take this out of context and say that I think that Western medicine is bad and doctors are bad and writing prescriptions are bad. Like these people save lives, millions and millions of lives every single day. Like, trust me.
Absolutely.
And then I've also seen it go on the opposite end too, where people go too far, the holistic, like homeopathic route, where they've actually refused Western medicine treatments, like in later stages of cancer or whatever, and they've died because of it, because they refuse to get chemotherapy or radiation therapy or these potentially life-saving treatments. So I think that you can definitely go too far in the opposite direction for sure. But I'm not pro one side. I'm not pro Eastern or pro Western or anti-Eastern or anti-Western. I'm just looking for the best way to blend the two And I think that the best way to blend the two in my observations has been homeopathic first and then Western second.
Right. And I think historically that's always been the goal for the majority of people. Most people, I mean, I shouldn't say most. Most people I know don't want to go to the doctors for the common cold.
Yes.
But the doctors want, and this is just from my experience, but the doctor wants you to, until this pandemic, the doctors want you to come to the doctors for that, for the common cold.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? But now it's changing a little bit because of this pandemic too, where doctor's offices are like, okay, you have a common cold, you know, just hydrate, you know, and weather the storm, so to speak. And that's what I think you should do. Like I've always been that way. I've never been the one that wants to get a prescription for the sniffles.
Yeah.
Like I can ride that out. Like I'm dealing with it right now. Like, and the way I treat a head cold is I get a hot shower in the morning to start my day to help loosen all that up, and I'm good. Like the rest of the day, I'm fine.
People need to take ownership of their health and be their own doctor. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not like, I go to the doctors for things, of course, but like try to avoid going to the doc. It's like the old saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah.
Like you should be trying to take control of your own health first by the foods you eat, your stress management, your sleep quality, your exercise, and you're going to find yourself in the doctor's office a lot less.
I'm living proof of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But do you have any like weekly update stuff you'd like to cover?
To be fair, not really. Just I was sick actually, so I was talking to my training partner, one of my training partners earlier, and I said, now it's pretty cool that I'm gaining like a pound or two a day. And he said to me, he was like, holy cow, man. He's like, that's amazing. Like, are you trying to put on a lot of size and strength? And I said, well, yeah. But the reason I say that, again, context, is when I was sick, I lost like 15 pounds. And so I kind of said it in jest as a joke, like, well, I'm just gaining back like, you know, intracellular fluid and literally food weight from not being able to eat for so long. So I was like, yeah, dude, I said, I'm just refilling in what I had lost. I'm not actually gaining like pounds and pounds of muscle tissue. I'm just, you know, a little bit fuller and rehydrated now. I just said it's cool to see the scale go up 2 pounds every day or whatever.
Right.
So I'm getting back to full health. Strength has come back now because I was out of the gym for a week. And not only was I out of the gym for a week, but I was dehydrated. I didn't eat for a week, essentially. So you take a huge dip in progress, but it comes back quickly. You know, so I'm feeling back to feeling like a little bit of myself. I'm still worn down, still very mucusy, sniffly, but definitely much better than I was. So I don't really have any updates other than saying like I'm getting back to normal, which is a good thing. So that's it on my end.
Gym updates. I don't have a whole lot of gym updates, but I did inadvertently start intermediate fasting again this week. Like it actually started because I woke up late on Monday. Not late, like as to the fact that I was actually late, but I woke up and didn't have time to blend my shake in the morning and get everything together. So I literally just threw my shake, my Premier Protein shake in my bag, and out the door I went. But I found myself not drinking that shake until noon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, check. And wasn't hungry at all. So I did that all week. I fasted till like between 11 and noon. So almost 12 hours, 14 hours, more than that, almost 14 hours.
And I believe you're down about 10 pounds this week, right?
Well, 10 pounds in the last 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, but total, since I started my new job, I'm down 10 pounds, which is awesome. It feels good to see the scale starting to do the right thing again. I feel better aside from having a allergy cold this last 3-4 days. I feel better physically. Like I have more energy. I have a little more pep in my step, so to speak. I'm doing more cardio. So yeah, everything's going in the right direction.
Awesome. Very good. Good to hear. And like it's pretty cool because like you've been one to be, and we both are, be fully transparent on our progress. Like you, like updating your weights and stuff, especially early on when we started the podcast. I mean, you were giving your weight updates and talking about how much cardio you were doing. And I think it was really good insight for people to realize like how much a weight. And I know we've said this before, but you lost a ton of weight because you did the right things. And I think that people sometimes underestimate how much you can actually do if you push it. And I'm not
how much you are in control.
Yeah, you're completely in your control. And even in
like
periods of times of relapse, you've been pretty adamant that like, hey, this is my fault.
And it's 100%. Like, you know, it's comfortability and weakness coming to the top. And it's just a matter of overcoming that comfortability and being in control of your weaknesses. And just I guess it's identify them, make them known, so they're not so much a weakness as it's just a fact.
One of my favorite things that you've ever said was you would always talk about, you know, even when I was at my skinniest, I was still the fattest guy in every room.
And I'm still that now.
And I liked when you would say that, because it's a very, very good mentality to have, because not that you compare yourself to other people and you don't, obviously you want to be satisfied with the progress you made, but at the same time, it was like, look, I made a lot of progress, and some people would get satisfied and happy with the progress, and then they stop, and then that's the end of their life. Like I'm happy now that I'm not 500 pounds, you know, I'm in the 300 pounds. So I'm good because I lost 200 pounds. So good for me. Pat myself on the back. Progress is now over. I'm going to maintain this, which I guess if that makes you happy, then that's what makes you happy, and you can do whatever you want with your body. But like, I think taking the mentality of I still got work to do is obviously what's going to keep you going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think that's where I was, you know, over the last, I don't know, 8-9 months, is I was comfortable and satisfied for a minute, and that bit me in the butt.
Well, you know, so because like you're comfortable now because you're doing stuff, like we talked about it before several times, like you created a whole new life. You're like a new person when you lose 225 pounds. So like now you can do things that you couldn't do before. So it's like, wow, it's like, you know, I can walk, I can jog. I was never able to do this. Well, shoot, I'm just going to keep doing this. I love this. And you're fine. But then once you walk and jog long enough, you realize like, well, I want to sprint. But it takes a while, because you should have that comfort period where you enjoy the progress that you made and stuff. But it's a double-edged sword, because the drawback to that then is you can be stagnant and say, man, I didn't make progress for so long because I was so okay with where I was.
And that's, you know, with full transparency, that's exactly what happened. But now I am realizing that I'm not okay with 360 pounds. You know, my walk around rate for the last basically a year has been between 330 and 360. Yes. And I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with it. You know, so like you said, it's time to get back to work.
Yep.
And that's it. And it is. It's time to get back to work. I'm done being the biggest guy in the room, even as far as I've got.
Yep, I like it. So we have both brief updates on our end, but guess we'll keep you guys updated if anything else in our lives change, you know. A lot of times I go by the adage, no news is good news, right?
Absolutely. No news is good news. But hopefully there is a lot of good, better news that is news in the weeks and months and years to come.
There we go. All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 103, and we hope that you guys have an enjoyable week, and we look forward to hearing back from you next week. Unbreakable, unstoppable.